Hello everyone, and welcome back to AP Bio with AP Playground. Today we're covering topic 2.10, the last topic in Unit 2, Origins of Cell Compartmentalization. Today we're going to be describing similarities and differences in compartmentalization between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells, as well as looking at the origins of compartmentalization through the endosymbiotic theory. And our suggested scale is going to be argumentation, 6b, support a claim with evidence from biological concepts, processes, and/or data.
So, cell complexity. We talked about in 2.10, when discussing compartmentalization, that eukaryotes have membrane-bound organelles, and this allows reactions to be separate, as well as increasing the surface area for these reactions to occur. Meanwhile, prokaryotes can divide their cytoplasm into certain sections in order to separate reactions, because even though they don't have separate membrane-bound organelles, they're still able to split up the anabolic and catabolic reactions that take place at the same time. Now, let's talk about the evolution of cells. Now, evolution we'll cover much more in depth in Unit 7, but basically cells only come from other cells. And over time, as certain traits within cells became better for the environment and to maximize their ability to reproduce, cells became more complex. We can see this as we started from a single cell, very simple organism, and worked our way all the way up to the complex multicellular humans and other animals that we see in the world today. And prokaryotes eventually evolved to have, some of them at least, membrane-bound genetic information. Basically, the nucleus. So from the very basic single-cell prokaryote with its loop-de-loop of genetic information, eventually a cell evolved that was still a single cell, but it now had a nucleus to store this genetic information. It was now basically the first ancestral eukaryote. Now, we have to ask ourselves, where did the rest of the organelles come from? Some of them evolved simply over time, but others came from the endosymbiotic theory. So what is the endosymbiotic theory? This is the theory that certain organelles within eukaryotic cells evolved from free-living organisms, meaning organisms that were their own free-living creatures that were not part of any other creature. So this theory states that energy-producing and photosynthetic bacteria could have been taken up by the early eukaryote, and they weren't killed for whatever reason, and now there's a relationship that has been formed. The bacteria gets protection and nutrients, while the parent eukaryote now gets energy from the energy-producing bacteria that can perform aerobic respiration, or the photosynthetic bacteria that can store energy from sunlight. And eventually, these bacteria became organelles and part of the eukaryotic cell, and we got ourselves the mitochondria and the chloroplasts. Now, the evidence for the endosymbiotic theory lies within what we see in the chloroplast and mitochondria. Both of these organelles have their own DNA, and the theory is that some of the bacterial DNA was shared with the parent eukaryote, it's in the nucleus, but the chloroplast and mitochondria retained some of their original DNA from when they were free-living organisms. Additionally, both the chloroplasts and mitochondria have double membranes, which further shows that they were originally their own free-living organism with a single membrane, and once they became engulfed within the cell, they now have a double membrane. So here we have a diagram to show the endosymbiotic theory. First, we have an ancestral prokaryote. Of course, it's just going to be our membrane, our genetic information, and some ribosomes floating around. Next, what happens is the unfolding of the plasma membrane, and from this we start to see the formation of a nucleus, storage container for the genetic information. Next, what happens is endosymbiosis. These bacterium, the cyanobacterium and the aerobic bacterium, are going to enter the cell and form a relationship with this prokaryote that now has a nucleus, and because they're being engulfed by the plasma membrane as they enter the cell, they gain a double membrane, and as they form a relationship with the ancestral eukaryote, they eventually become organelles, and they're part of the cell, and we have ourselves a complete ancestral eukaryote that contains multiple mitochondria and chloroplasts within it. So this has been Origins of Cell Compartmentalization. You got to know the differences in eukaryotes and prokaryotes, and most importantly, the endosymbiotic theory. Next up is the unit review, and then we're going straight into Unit 3 with cellular energetics.